Perhaps no nation in the EU bloc has been more critical of Israel's battle against Hamas the last few months than the Republic of Ireland. Carrying on, we have to say, a political tradition that long predates October 7th. Now, Irish officials have called for boycotting Israel. Its national women's basketball team refused to shake hands with their Israeli counterparts at a recent game. And just a few days ago, Ireland joined with other nations in condemning Israel's policies in the West Bank at a hearing in the World Court in The Hague. It can't be easy, then, to be the Israeli ambassador to Dublin these days, especially when you come under personal attack. Street protests, politicians, and the Sinn Féin party have repeatedly called for the reprimand, even the expulsion of the Israeli ambassador to Dublin, Dana Ehrlich. Calls renewed over this past week after she said in an interview that Irish media outlets are offering, quote, a very one-sided view, portraying Israel as the only villain and not showing any responsibility of Hamas. Well, joining us now is the Israeli ambassador to Ireland, Dana Ehrlich from Dublin. Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for joining us. Ireland, one of the most beautiful countries in the world. I've been in there a few times. Lovely people, but with Israel, it's a bit of a problem. Give us briefly your view of the situation.
We all know that Ireland is a challenging place, even before October 7th. But what we've seen since October 7th and in past months is an alarming rise of hate speech and an extreme discourse delegitimizing Israel and delegitimizing also Zionism, Israel's right to defend itself in the public. So we are concerned about the situation here.
Right. First of all, how do you explain that? Why is there Ireland in particular? I mean, I want to go into the whole history of Ireland, but why, especially in the last few months, is it been so virulent in Ireland in a way that is, I think, kind of unmatched in Western Europe, maybe only Spain in terms of what we've seen there?
I've been here only for 7 months, so I'm still learning the history and trying to understand, perhaps as I see it, a false analogy that is made here in Ireland, and something that is, they're describing it as their own history and their own knowledge of what happened here in Ireland with the Brits in Northern Ireland, which is not relevant to Israel, but unfortunately, that personal connection is hard to break. Right. And what we're trying to do here is portray the whole perspective of it and ask the Irish people to be critical and to ask the right questions.
Right. Now, your willingness to speak out this way has made you a personal target of the criticism in the streets and also in the halls of government. How are you dealing with that? And does that impact you on your job and your ability to get that message across there in Ireland?
As diplomats, we're used to being in the front, and this war, unfortunately, has many fronts within Israel and outside of Israel. And as diplomats, we know that when we serve, we are the face of Israel. Unfortunately, here in Ireland, there are not a lot of voices, not only speaking on behalf of Israel, but even portraying a more balanced view. So I know that when being the face of Israel, I'll be the subject of this criticism and these attacks. But the amount of attacks and how aggressive and hateful these are, I don't think any of us expected.
Right. In particular, this, I think last week, you specifically called out the Irish media, one media outlet in particular, which must make it even more harder. Are there places where you can present your case without it being either turning out into a kind of just an endless interruption of criticism of Israel? Are you able to get your voice out there to the Irish public?
Well, I tried to talk wherever I'm given a platform, because for us it is important to say these messages and to convey our point of view. And what we clarify is that criticism of Israel obviously is not anti-Semitism, but what's portrayed here is a very one-sided view. It's a very biased view, unfortunately, which portrays a double standard against Israel. And we will continue calling it out.
Right. Now, one factor may be in all this that there's not a significant Jewish community in Ireland. Though when I traveled there many years ago, they heard I was Jewish, they reminded me of the mayor of Dublin was Jewish. Was I related to him? But I wanted to ask you on that question, because some people have raised whether some of this actually trips over in anti-Semitism. And we've heard that repeatedly. We saw some examples that what happened with the women's basketball team, which really seems to almost go beyond certainly political criticism of Israel.
This is our concern, that what we've seen is manifested in many ways and is crossing the line into anti-Semitism. Because when people bluntly call for delegitimization of Israel, that is anti-Semitism. When there is a dehumanization and vilification of all of the Jewish community here and Israeli community here, that is anti-Semitism, and we need to call it out for what it is.
Right. One last question, to broaden it out, because Ireland is just one voice in the EU. As I said, I think it represents one end of a spectrum, maybe something what we're seeing with this, for example, the current Spanish government. You have some countries in East Europe that have been much more supportive of Israel, and in between the Western nations, which their views have shifted lately. How concerned are you and your other ambassadors to the EU that overall the EU may be shifting into a position that's going to be more uncomfortable for Israel? For example, calling for an immediate ceasefire without the release of hostages, for example, from Gaza.
I think we still see a very strong support within the EU. And the last statement made by the European Parliament saying that a ceasefire will be provided only after the kidnapped are returned and Hamas is eliminated. And those voices are important. And also, it's important to note that even here in the Irish government, they acknowledge that Hamas will not be part of the solution and it needs to be disarmed.
All right, Donna Ehrlich, as you said, a challenging assignment representing Israel now in the Republic of Ireland, but you have spoken out and have made your voice heard there and taken some heat for it. We wish you all the best in your mission.
Thank you very much.